Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. So today we will prepare. This video will be to prepare for we prepare the lab environment. Um, this is the infrastructure that we're going to do for the VMware. So we will have three servers. We will have a FortiGate, a firewall that will connect locally and connect to the one, etc. But physical in the best environment, you have to bring three physical servers to install SXI, deploy vSAN, deploy NSX, etc. But for a lab environment, it is recommended to do it like a nested virtualization. What I mean, instead of buying three physical servers, I can have one physical host. Okay, I can have one physical host, one server, and like a server, it is a like a virtual server, it is a VM. So I can my SXI one, I can create a virtual server, a VM here that will be my SSI one. I can create another um, virtual server for my SXI two and another one for my SXI 3. So uh, only what I need, it will be one physical server to do the whole lab. Okay. And the same way that I create a VM for SXI, etc. So if I will need to, for example, to simulate a tier switch, a water, etc., I can download a virtual appliance. That's what we're going to do in our lab. It will be a FortiGate virtual appliance, so that going to prepare a, for example, to ward VLANs traffic, etc., management traffic, vMotion traffic, vSAN traffic, um, NSX traffic, yeah, overlay traffic. That we will deploy a new VM, a FortiGate VM. So you can have a laptop. The physical server can be a laptop, and you install VMware Workstation on it. But if for my environment, it is it is SXI that I install SXI 8, and I'm going to create to build the infrastructure on top of it. So if you have a powerful laptop, you can on top of it you can install VMware Station and create the lab, create the VM that will be SXI, a deploy the virtual FortiGate. But if you have a on SXI, it is better because it is a bare metal virtualization, so so it will run faster. So let's start. Let's start. So to prepare the infrastructure, so I will need two virtual switches on the SXI or on the physical server. Yeah, one physical switch that will be to carry all the traffic. So when you have a server, all those server has two physical NICs. In the real world, those two physical switch will connect to a TOR switch, a top of rack switch. But to simulate the top of rack switch, I can create a virtual switch that we call it a lab switch. And here it is the one. For example, if I have a my management VLAN, I want that management VLAN can connect to the internet, or the VM that will host on NSXi, that I want this VM can go to the one. So I will have in my virtual appliance. It will connect. I will have another switch. So I can use the standard VM network switch that connect in my physical network that have internet. So that to connect to the internet. So how is it now? So in my SXI server, I have one physical NIC that is connect to my physical network, okay, that has internet and that can route to the internet. And in my physical SXI, I will create a new virtual switch that will be lab. We can call it lab switch, okay, a standard switch that provide all the traffic from those SXI. But guess what? In all SXI, we have two physical NICs. That mean that there will be many that you will have to create many VLAN on those SXI, because you will have management traffic, you have vMotion traffic, so that you will want to separate those traffic, so you will create different VLAN on those SSI. So it will be on the virtual distributed switch. You create a port group for management, a VLAN for a vMotion, for vSAN, for fault tolerance. And if you have NSX, you will create for host step a VLAN. You will create a VLAN for your edge network. So so you will have many VLANs that will use those two NICs. And the bare minimum is have two physical NICs for failover and redundancy. So all those two NICs will work together for failover and for redundancy. Now, now, if you see that all when my lab switch will carry all those villains and many more villains as we progress on the series, we'll create other villains. So we have to configure this lab switch, okay, this virtual switch that will create under SXI. So this virtual switch should have some characteristic. For example, it should be a virtual. Um, it should be, it should be able to carry villains. And if you want to create a virtual switch that can carry all villains that you want, there is a um, something, a technology called VGT. What is VGT? VGT stands for virtual guest trunking. It is you will find it on virtualization, especially on VMware. That means if you want that switch can carry all the VLAN, for example, for management, for vMotion, for vSAN, like you will do it on a physical switch. So you have to assign this switch a special VLAN ID, and the VLAN ID is 4095. So if you have a virtual VLAN ID in your virtual environment, you specify the VLAN ID is 4095. This means that it is a virtual trunking switch. That means what is a virtual guest trunking? That means that is the responsibility of the guest operating system. In our case, it is SXI that will that will assign villain tags to outbound traffic. That means what? When SXI, for example, there is a management villain for the management a traffic. You want to carry the traffic for outside. So SXI should it is the responsibility of SXI to tag the traffic as a management VLAN. For example, for the vMotion, go for one SXI when you have to move, for example, one VM here to another VM to another host. So you will use the vMotion network, and to create this vMotion network, so it is the responsibility of the guest operating system. In our case, it is SXI to assign a tag to those traffic that will leave this port. So in our case, we will see it. So it will be in our case a 1020. So if I have a vMotion here go to this host, so the SXI will tag all the traffic, the network traffic for the vMotion that will go to this port and go here. So it is the responsibility of SSI to tag this traffic to 1020. I hope that it is clear. Um, if I have another things I have to mention, it is for my physical server to prepare the. So don't forget, we are preparing the lab environment. So I should have one physical a network that will be assigned to VM network switch. And for my lab switch, I don't need to assign a physical hardware or a physical NIC to my lab switch, because all the traffic will be here in this spot. And if this is the traffic want to go to the one, and it is the FortiGate, my firewall appliance, that will be responsible to move packets, the respective VLANs to the one. Okay, so we will create two a virtual switch, one for the VM network that will simulate the one, or the, you can call it the real environment, and one another virtual switch that will carry all those traffic for from your lab. That will be lab switch. That will be lab SW. But but as I will have many villains, I will have to create many villains. For example, for management, for vMotion, for a photolinks, for vMotion management. So I will need that those this virtual switch that I'm going to create. It should be, it should have a special villain ID that will be for the 95. Okay, so I hope that it is clear. So in our lab, what we're going to do, we're going to deploy first of all a virtual appliance. We will create after the lab switch, and after we can start deploying a SXI and other servers. And now we're going to start with deploying the virtual firewall. So to have another ID, so by the physical my physical appliance that is on in my house. So the physical network is a blank physical server that I install SXI on it, that has this IP 12100, and it is brand new. So I will create on my physical SXI. I will have to create three SXI. I will have to deploy the virtual a firewall appliance. So on my physical. So this is what I'm going to do now. So let's start. So um I've my I've downloaded the. You can go to FortiGate to download a virtual appliance. So there is free trial that you can run for 50 days. So I download it. So I'm going to deploy the virtual appliance. Okay. Um, so I go. Okay, what we can do, we can create we can create first of all, let's create those two virtual switch. So when we deploy the virtual FortiGate, so we can assign to the respective network. So let's create the VM network switch and the lab switch. When we go to the networking, by default, the VM network is created by default along with the management network. So the VM network is the that represent the virtual the virtual switch. So my physical server is connected to my house that get an IP from my physical router, my house router, so you can get the internet. So it is the VM network that has a this is the virtual network. Now I will create another virtual switch that all my esxi will connect to it. So let's create it. I go to the networking, okay, virtual switch. So I will create a new sort of virtual switch, but don't forget, as I said, this virtual switch don't need to have a physical, don't need to bind to a physical network. So I don't need to attach a physical a network on it, because if you want to go to the one, if you want, if this some a traffic here want to go to the one, so the virtual a FortiGate appliance will be responsible to route the traffic. So let's start to create. So I create a new switch, virtual switch. I call it lab switch, lab SW. Okay, and you can create a um here. I don't need as I say, I don't need a uplink, a physical, to attach it to a physical a network or network a card adapter. So I remove it and I add it. So I create a virtual suite with no uplink. Now I have to create a port group. Okay, so I can attach VM to those port group. So I go to the port group. So I create the port group. I can give the same name, lab switch, and it is here when you're going to we're going to assign the VLAN ID as I will want that it carry all the traffic. So it will be I will create a virtual guest trunking um, port group. So, and for this characteristic, it should have this VLAN ID 4095. Okay, and it will be for my lab switch. Okay, and normally for the lab, you have to put, especially for the lab, you have to put all to accept promiscuous MAC address function. You put to accept. Yes, that's it. So I create my lab switch port group. Now I can deploy my virtual appliance, FortiGate appliance. So I download it as I said before. So I go to virtual machine. I create a new virtual machine. I deploy. So I deploy the OVF next. So I will give a friendly name, FG, a firewall, a FortiGate lab client. So now to select the OVF files. So I go to where I download it and put all the drive of the files. Sorry. And next, I say I agree, accept. Next. Now, For my own environment, I will need only three network for my environment. I will explain. I will need for my FortiGate, I will need one network, one adapter card to simulate the one for the one to connect to the one. I will need another a network port to simulate the lab switch to connect to the my lab switch, and I will need another one for management. I can use I can use the lab switch to for my management, but I will use a physical adapter. So I will need three ports on my virtual appliance. Two for one for the lab switch to carry all those VLANs, another one for my management, my managing, for example, if I have an active directory, if I have the vCenter, NSX controllers, all will be under management, on management VLAN. So I will use a physical port for this and another port for my one internet connection. Okay. So let's return to the lab. So I can use the first can be for my one, and I really don't need two. I really don't need two for my lab switch. Even those all this is lab switch, it doesn't matter, but only two I need. Okay, and I do next and next finish. So the process is very straightforward, very quick. So when I finish, I start, and I'm going to configure the FortiGate. And for this environment, I use a FortiGate, but for your environment, if you have a virtual Cisco router, you can use it. If you have a another virtual router, you can use it. Whatever you use, but for me, um, I use a FortiGate virtual appliance for the purpose of this video. Okay, so I'm going to configure it, assign an IP to the one, and to access to the FortiGate interface. After I will create those VLANs, so it will be a sub interface because all those traffic will go to one port. So all this VLAN, I will create sub interface on it. Okay, it's almost finished. Okay, so I've do the basic configuration. Sorry. Um, so I will start. So I will do it's admin. Okay, admin to ask me to create the password. So I give password. So I give a name, the appliance, and I'm going to, for example, for the port one, I'm going to to configure the port one so I can get a DHCP IP from my physical network, and I'm going to allow the a management a traffic for the FortiGate so I can access for a browser to do the rest of the configuration. Interface. So it is the port one. So I will edit the port one. It will be the ICP. Let's allow the management traffic. Um, okay, that's it. Okay, let's see which IP that this port get. This interface get for one get. It has this IP 12108, so I can access to it. Okay. Um, That's it. It's very straightforward. I deploy my particular appliance. Okay. So another things I want to show you, for example, when you are going to do this lab, Fortigate give you a license for 50 days. If for some case that after, for example, my appliance will expire on this day. It is for 15 days. If you have after your lab that will last very long, more than 15 days. So if you what you can do, you can, for example, in 40 days you can do a backup. I will show you how to do it. Let's configure. You can do a backup of the configuration and reset the hardware, the virtual appliance after we store the backup. We will do it. Now let's configure the all this interface. We know that for port one, it is our one connection, internet connection for the port one. So we can specify it here. Okay. Um, and we can use port 2 for the management interface, management traffic. So there will be no VLAN. So which IP you will get? Will you put the subnet IP on the subnet? This we will assign IP of the subnet. Okay, here. Yeah. And if you want, we can allow access. Okay. Now all other traffic that we will use for the lab switch, we will use as in port 3. So we'll create, if we have to create a new VLAN, so all will be a sub interface in port 3. All of this will go on port 3. Okay. So let me remove something to okay. Okay. Now we will create those those sub interface. So it will be, for example, for my VLAN management VLAN, we have already the management VLAN. Don't forget we use it in port 3. In port 3 it is the management. But for vMotion, vSAN, for tolerance and other VLAN that we have created, we will use port 3. So I go in port I will go port 3. So I create a new interface. For example, for vMotion traffic, um, we will use port 3. The VLAN will be 10 and 20. It is the here that we'll use to specify, and the IP will be this. So I create a sub interface for my vMotion traffic. I'll create another one for the vSAN, a new interface for the vSAN 3 and 30. Okay. Yep. No problem. And another one for the photo lane traffic. FT traffic for 3. Okay. Mm, okay. Yeah, that's it. So what we do here, so we finish. What we do here, it is we create for the management traffic, we we assign the managed traffic to a physical port of the my virtual appliance. It is port 2. I don't assign the VLAN. It is what we can call it will be the native VLAN. That means if I have for all those traffic here that that I don't specify a VLAN, it will use the native VLAN that will connect to the management. That my physical host is still it will be only the lab switch again in my physical host. So in my physical host, so you see that it was slow. Okay, in my okay for the first network, it will be my VM network, and the second will be for management traffic, but it will still use the lab switch, and the other will be for the old other villain. That's what we create sub interface for a vMotion, vSAN, for tolerance traffic. Okay. Now, to finish this video, I think we finished to create the infrastructure. Now, to finish the video, I want to show you, for example, if I have my FortiGate after 15 days, so I don't need to deploy on another one. What I can do, I can before the expiration of the license, you can back up your configuration. Um, okay, you can back up it after what you do. You can here I can use the console to sorry sorry. Okay, you can use the okay. You can use the CLI console, the command line interface. So to do a factory reset. So when you reset your appliance, it will assign another 50 days to perform or the operation that you want. So I will do a factory reset. Okay. So it's going to reset. So if you go to the console, okay, so my appliance is going to reset. So will be like a new appliance. So you have to configure again the port one. After you can to connect to connect with the to the management interface, and after you can restore the your backup configuration. So okay, like a new one. So I have to configure again the interface, the port one. So it is the HTTP. I have to allow HTTP for the management traffic. Okay. Okay, let's configure to see which IP is get the HTTP. Normally it should be the same IP. Yeah, the same IP, and connect. You see, it's like a new router. Okay. Um. Now I can. If you go to network, there is no traffic. There is no configuration because we perform a factory reset. Okay. We lost all our configuration. We don't have sub interface, but if you go to, I just do it, but if you wait for 50 days and you do it, you will see that you have another 50 days again before you can perform another factory reset. So let do the restore with let restore the configuration. Okay. It's in download. Okay. So I do a restore. So all what we do, so we can have all those configuration. So don't forget, as long as you progress in your lab, each before each 15 days, always perform a backup and perform a factory reset, restore your backup, and you can continue in your lab. Okay. Um, so it's going to restart, and I think that's it. That's it for today. So so let's wait that is finished to reboot and to see if we have all configuration. Okay, I go to the policy. I go to the network. The network I create, and I can see all my configuration, my management, all the is all the sub interface I create. So what we do to wrap up, so we we create a nested it is a nested lab. That means all the lab we have to create will be virtual. First of all, in our SSI, we deploy the virtual appliance. We create three. We use three ports on the virtual appliance. One for the lab switch that that will be that will be a VGT, a virtual guest trunking that will have a special a ID for the A95. Another one that will be for the management. You can say it inactive VLAN. If you want, I can put my management VLAN in the sub interface, but I prefer to put in management. That's mean for all the traffic, I can use the a physical port instead of a sub interface. And for my one, we use port one for the one, port two for the lab switch, and port three for the sub interface for environment. And in the sub interface, we create a VLAN for vMotion 1020, vSAN 1030, 1040, and for the management, don't forget we use another interface, a special interface. So for the management VLAN, that's it. So in the next video, what we're going to do before deploying the SXI, we're going to deploy the Active Directory. Why the Active Directory? Because for our lab, we will use a we will use the DNS. So we should have a DNS infrastructure. We should create this environment. If we want to authenticate user access against Active Directory, so you should deploy you should have a authentication server that we will use a Active Directory. And yes, if you want the HTTP DNS, but we will use it more for the Active Directory, for the user access authentication, and we will use it for the DNS to manage a, a name resolution. Thank you very much. In our next video, we will start deploying and configuring Active Directory server. Thank you very much and see you in the next video. Bye bye.